like, I need to figure out when to shower before like I'm back in my day. I was like, okay, I have an hour between meetings. I need to jump in the shower, dress like somewhat, because dinner's at 6:15, and she's like, I get out at 5:30. I'm like, okay, like, sure, I can make it work. I should have just been like, but you know, I was like, you know what? I'll do half dress now, half dress later. I got these actually for my brother's wedding last year. What a year it's been. They got married last year, and you know, since then.
Oh, back in the olden days when we was like talking to each other's face. What was that?
In person, 150 person wedding. Like, it was ridiculous. But like,
who did we think
our family. Yeah, I was like, also we only knew 3 tables, like our side of the family. So I was like, I don't know these people. Maybe 4. But yeah, it's been quite the year, and I've been trying to get dressed more is something else, but you know.
Well, I wore Prince for you today because
I appreciate that.
I was like, she deserves Prince because we had a good time.
Thank you.
The last time we chatted, and my nephews aren't with me, so it's they're busy in their own dwellings. All right, I'm gonna do my opening, and then we're gonna get into it. All right.
Yes.
Drinking anything? What are you drinking?
A latte.
Okay.
There's a honey almond latte from the place around the corner. It's so good. I'm like, it's cracked out. It's crack for sure. It's better than Starbucks anything, and it's just like they run out of almond syrup sometimes that we became like, no, what do you mean? What am I? And then we moved on to cookie butter. Like, who needs that in your latte? Like, it's wild. We've been having some weeks here, right? Like, it's okay though. We're making it.
Good time. All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cafecito. I'm your host, Christiana. As you all can see, we have a good time over here. I haven't even started to introduce our guests, and you know, you would think we've known each other for years, and by years, a couple of weeks. That is years in our realm. Shout out to our sponsor, We The Plug, for hosting us. And if you all haven't heard about We The Plug, it's an online platform that works with, it's a global actual platform. So you can connect with other founders, investors in the space, as well as those in the 9-to-5, and grow your business or just create community in the way that you're looking to. So if you want to learn more about it, go on WeThePlug, THA, not THE.com. So you guys know the Cafecito is about everyday people doing extraordinary things, and our guest today is no different. You guys heard us talking about our drinks that we had on the Cafecito. You got a honey, what did you say? A honey?
It's a honey almond latte. It's just like, it's like Christmas, but better, just because I can have it all the time. Who doesn't love almonds? I'm all about the almonds, like almond croissants, almond lattes.
Oh my gosh. I have had everything but an almond latte, so I'm going to have to try that out. I am drinking a lemon ginger with probiotics because, you know, winter is upon us, and I heard Rona is trying to make a real hardcore wave. And shout out to everybody again. And I said, Rona, what you're not doing is coming through these streets. I mean, I'm quarantining still hardcore, but anyways, that's what me and Wonder Woman is drinking today.
I wish we could say the same, because we, on Saturday, we were like being pretty cautious.
Yeah. And
then Saturday rolled around and everyone in Harlem was just out.
I like out, or just like out?
It was like my mom came over and dropped something off, and there was like screaming, honking in the streets, and I was just like,
oh yeah, because of the elections.
Because elections. Lord. So I was like, and it was like beautiful 70 degrees in November in New York, and everyone was just like brunching on the streets. Like we were driving around because on top of it, my mom got a flat, and we were just like honking with a flat, driving around Harlem, and people were just out. And like on a street corner, just 50, 60 people dancing, just like everyone, and me and my mom in the car, like honking, my dog's like barking in the background. I was like, we're gonna kill this.
Y'all was
Oh yeah,
turned.
people had masks, but I was like, oh, we're gonna feel this in about a week or two when people just aren't that cautious.
I feel like you guys were like in a motorcade. That's the way I think you should, when you tell that story again, say you and your mom was in a motorcade. Because y'all was the only one like really, really officially quarantined. But let's just
Yes.
put in y'all was the motorcade going through, waving to everybody like, yeah, we did
just
that.
honking, waving. My mom was just screaming out the window. I was like, yeah, this is about right. So we're trying to be better, but you can't give us good weather in November. It's not good for us.
Seriously. I know, because you guys were having rain for a while too.
Rain. It was already like getting cold. We're like, okay, fall is here. We're gonna stand. This is fine.
Right.
People were like, 70 degrees for 4 days. Out.
I know that's right. Take advantage of it, man. Well, I'm excited to have you here because you and I connected. We were in the Latinx Fest event, which if you guys have not heard about it, LTX, you can find it ltx.com, I think it is, or ltxfest.com. Check it out. It is a organized group that generated just shy of like maybe 7,000 or 8,000 attendees. And it hyper focuses on the Latinx community in the startup space, and just a really great opportunity if you are not from the Latin community or Hispanic community. You can still connect and be an ally and a support, because it's definitely needed. So learn more about that. But anyways, we connected. It was fantastic. We're officially soul sisters. When I come to Harlem, we're going to hang out, and COVID is gone and we'll have a good time. But in the meantime, tell the people who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. My name is Nicole. I born and raised, always lived in New York City, New York. Minus Staten Island, unfortunately. Sorry, like love y'all, but I won't be. The first time I went to Staten Island or the ferry, I swear I'm trying to do better, but the first time was literally, I ran the marathon for the first time last year. It was the first time on the Staten Island ferry, and I was like, hey, my first time on the ferry. So love y'all, but
ferry, by the way.
It's great. It was quite an experience. But I am currently in the VC world. So I'm at a small startup, Interplay Ventures. We're now at 8 people currently in our team, and I'm an operations manager. So I've been in the role for over a year, and operations is a pretty loose term no matter what industry you're in. For me, I do a little bit of everything. So helps with company formation, CEO communication, because we have a foundry companies that we started. So we work closer with them. I do some marketing, I do some hiring, I do some tech work, because I know a little bit about how to like maintain a website. Like just, like all those little things that like add up. You're like, I'm never gonna need to know how to do this. Or like growing up, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Take everything to figure it out. So that one course in coding, that one multiple courses in Adobe, and now like kind of works out. But that means I have a lot of little things to do.
You know what I appreciate most about what you're saying is that you never know what skill set you pick up along the way is going to help you down the road with your career or in your personal life. And that's such a valuable point that you made right there. So I definitely want to deep dive a little bit more into that. But going back to like your role with in this company, I think what's super important for people to realize is that when you work for an early stage company, or you're in the startup world just in general, oftentimes you are wearing multiple hats because again, it's like you are building this company. So talk to me a little bit about how did you get to this place? Like, was this something that you were always wanting to do? You talked about taking some courses in school, like in the tech space, but like, is this what you wanted? Did you see this? Is this where you were going from jump?
No. So I think I was one of those kids that I was like, don't you just do everything you want to do? Like,
girl, I said I would be Wonder Woman when I grew up. I didn't know no better. And
right? Like,
I think I am, honestly, on another planet I am.
You are. I never, like, school, while I was decent at it, it was never something that interests me too much. I did whatever I needed to, like, maintain grades and stay, like, on a dean's list every so often, or like these, like, one-offs. I'm like, yeah, you join yearbook because someone told me I had to join yearbook. But like growing up, I was like, I don't know what the most, like, student council, like, why is that important?
Right.
I mean, I'm sure it is, but I don't know. But I never really knew what I wanted to do. I started working at 14 just because, like, I think my mom started working probably younger than that. And it's always a mentality of, like, once you can work, you're going to start to support yourself in whatever way you can. So I worked throughout, like, high school, like, on the 40 hours a week during the summer. Like, I never really not did that. Yeah. When I wasn't there during the summer, like, I was also in school full time and doing, like, running track 6 days a week. And then I took up another job one time and did, like, I was, like, always working. I worked at CVS for a hot, like, 6 months on top of doing other things.
Shut up. Oh.
Yeah. I guess I didn't know how to not be busy. And, you know, like, I wanted, like, my own cell phone when I was 11. My mom was like, you got to pay for it yourself. And I, like, saved up, got whatever phone MTV was, like, broadcasting. And I never used it because I'm like, oh, minutes are expensive. Like, I don't.
Yes. The minutes. Oh, I can't run up my anytime minutes. Sorry.
Gotta go. So I went away to college my freshman year. I went down to North Carolina, which was an amazing experience. And then I couldn't afford to stay in school. So I continued to work, saved up money, paid off loans to go back to school. And I kind of, like, I've always worked. So the biggest chunk of my career in my 20s was I worked at a health and wellness company that blossomed in 13, 14 years, however long it is. And it's a fitness studio. And I started part-time, and through those 7 years, so I worked at SoulCycle. Through those 7 years, I started at 5 studios. When I was no longer there, it was 100 studios. And I just worked my way through different types of opportunities as much as possible as I can. When I was, like, knew I conquered what I felt like conquered in terms of, I know everything that I need to know about this position, I would just continue to ask for more. But at a certain point, when you're realizing that you can't develop no more, or people fail to see yourself and your potential to continue to grow, you got to realize that too, right? So then I did a small stint in media, like 6-7 months, and I was an executive assistant to 2 C-suite members. And I was like, I don't like doing this either. I don't like telling adult men how to, like, run their schedule sometimes. It's weird to me, you know, and I understand the need for it. I do. And that's not all that EAs do either, but I went from, like, running my own team, training and development, diversity, inclusion, like, all these other things that I was, like, felt were so much more impactful. And I was also at the point where I was like, I understand the need for people to do multiple hats and jobs, yes, but I also was aware that I will not let people take advantage of me and ask more of me. So when something wasn't my job, I would say, hey, I understand this is not in my role. Like, I want to understand, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, I am not, unfortunately, like, I've done that for a long time, and I would say yes. And at that moment where I was in my life, I was like, I don't want to keep saying yes. Like, I don't.
Boundaries.
Yeah. And if that doesn't make me likable or see me as a hard worker, there's a difference. And, like, realizing the difference, I think, is really important. But I was thankful because I worked alongside a lot of engineers and the tech team. And the amount of respect I grew for that team and what they do kind of changed, like, what I was, like, thinking about. And I actually started looking on AngelList for jobs because I was like, okay, startups, and apparently everyone
right there. She said AngelList jobs. Plug.
It's truly, there's so all the major companies are on there as well, but all the startups are also on there as well. And a few other things is like when they're invested by bigger companies, it states like Google invested in, Airbnb invested in this company. So it showcases like, oh, what type of bigger company is interested or how they might grow. And I came across the job I'm currently in, and the job description sold me more than anything. I knew that like my skills can translate in any different industry. Like managing a team, being a good manager is like, I relate everything to shows and movies all the time, but being a good manager doesn't means that you need to know the product better than someone below you or above you. Like being a good manager is like showing up for your people and believing that they could do their best, and that's gonna like help you. So I was like, oh, like that's great. And this job description was almost similar to how like I think about jobs. So like we'll train you how to do it. We'll develop you as much as we can. We need help this and this. These are the type of people we are. And through the job interviews, I'm like, oh, they're exactly who they say they are. Like there are no surprises, which is very rare, unfortunately. Like meeting someone and who they are and what they say is exactly who they are and what they say.
Right.
And for me, like the finance VC world, like I have trauma around financial, like my own financial responsibility, and just like growing up, like I am fully aware of like my barriers to that. So this was new for me and definitely pushed me out my comfort zone. So I definitely don't think I would ever end up here. And it just so happened that I did. So that's.
So, there were so many things that you said that I want to kind of go back to that I think is really important for those of you all who are listening. Like I said, she said Angel List. Angel List is a really great resource. Check it out. I'll put it in the link as well. But something else that you were saying that I was educated on really early on in my career from not just women, but men as well. And that was your skills need to be transferable. I remember when I'll never forget it. God rest her soul, Dr. Colette Sims, one of my mentors in undergrad. She passed away in March of this year from COVID. Huge advocate in the healthcare industry. And I just remember her sitting down with me. She didn't have to, but, she saw I was always in her office, her and Dr. Cooney, I was always in their office and just wanted to extract knowledge from them. And she gave me such great advice. I had recently switched my major. And I was trying to figure out my life, right? And so she was like, what are you taking? I said, sociology and Africana studies. And she was like, okay. And she was like, what do you want to do that sociology degree? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I just know I don't want to be a lawyer like my parents told me to go to school for. And she didn't tell me what to do. She just said, whatever it is that you do, make sure your skills are transferable. And I was like, well, what does that mean? Or what does that look like? Because obviously I know what transferable means, but I didn't know what that looked like. And she was patient and broke it down for me. And I'm so grateful to her to this day, because that's how I built my career. And every opportunity that was placed in front of me, to your point earlier about, I'm gonna learn a little bit of this and I'm gonna learn a little bit of that, and just kind of sharpen areas that you gravitate to, that you really advance. And you're like, okay, well, let me just learn a little bit more and lean a little bit more in. It really helped to advance my career, but also take control of my career. And that's why I feel you were able to kind of move when you were ready and felt like I've leveled up to the place, the highest that I can go to in this position. Now let me maneuver myself to see where to go to next. That's how you take control of your career. And that was really important that you highlighted that, because most who are in their career, especially starting out in their career, they're trying to figure out like, what do they want to do? And most of the time, especially right now in our economy, is kind of like shaky, right? And it's been shaky for a few years, but it's not like our parents' era where you're in a job for the next 20 years, nor do we want to be, right?
Yeah.
We're evolving
There's an average
beings.
of what I think statistics like 7 careers for millennials is what people are like banking on. We're not staying any longer. That was so the best thing I could say about SoulCycle knows how to hire. They know how to hire so well. That is one of their best assets. And the people in those communities are really what is keeping it going. Like the people that interact every day with the clients that come in. And as I was training assistant managers after assistant managers, because after a few years, you like realize how many people like come through. When I was working through their development plan, something that I would always emphasize, like my development plan that I'm creating with you, so your development plan, like this is on you. This is for you to develop. But one thing I wanted to stress was like, this is not for you to develop just within this company. Like if it's within this company, that is great if that's exactly what you want to do. But on offset, it's not. How can these skills move on? Like, what is it such a big deal? Like what a leadership means, why these trainings are really important. And I really try to stress that because I've had a lot of bosses through my life and I'm like 30 and I've had a lot, right? And so it's, you know, the good ones would state like, it's not the end of this job. It's where you keep taking it. And so like, I wanted to stress that to any person that I like was in control of, like, if this is not it, that is okay. But that shouldn't stop me from training and developing you out of this company then.
Right.
That's what we do. We need to support no matter what. You should be able to have a conversation with your boss and say, this is not it. I think I need to transition out. Like that would be amazing. Like the stress of it.
Dude, when I tell you, when we're looking at dismantling a broken system, because right now, I mean, to your point earlier about, you know, the company that you're currently with right now actually is accurately represented in person as they do look like on paper. I think that's the whole point, is like we walk around and we're taught to, you know, by the well-intended to put on these masks and be who the other person wants us to be, whether it's a relationship we're in or it's a company we work for. Just fake through it, you know, it'll be, excuse me. And it's like, yo, like, why, where does that get me? But in this very dark, depressed, sad, living for the weekend, living for that holiday, living for my retirement, but I'm not living. I'm waiting in anticipation for something better and then dreading when it's gone. What kind of life is that? But we're taught that's what we should have. I agree with you. Like when I would have a team that I would work with, I would always, whenever we did one-on-ones, we would be fully transparent. And I'd say, you know, tell me what's working, what's not working, you know, where do you want to go in your career? And what I don't want to hear from you is, gosh, I love working here so much. And I, you know, want to just keep pushing forward and just really building so I can get, if that's not what you want, if that's what you do want, all day, every day, let's break down. But if what you truly want is to go outside, do you know one of the things, and I hope she's okay with me shouting her out, but I have to shout out another amazing supervisor that I had. My one of my VPs, her name is Amy Graves. To this day, we're so close and really good friends. I think of her as extended family. But she literally would come to me with job listings and be like, Chris, what about this job? I think you'd be really good in it. What do you think? And what she was doing, because at first I was like, damn, am I not good enough to work? But what she was doing was every time we would be in our one-on-ones, she would listen to my aspirations, how I wanted to grant write. And at the time I wasn't, and I wanted to understand how the company grant. And she was like, cool, there's an opportunity within the company. Why don't you look at this? Like literally taking me off the team that she was supervising, overseeing, and was advancing me to another team within the company, because she's like, you'd be a good fit, instead of like selfishly holding on to me because, yeah, you're a really great worker. No, I want you to be, you know. So I learned how to be a great leader from experiencing great leaders, but also experience challenging leaders as well. Yeah. That I was like, oh, what not to be 101. But yeah, I think we would be in such a great place if we could openly talk with our superiors to say, you know, I'm outgrowing this space. Where do I go next?
Within in my job interview, I remember my boss stating, like, if this job just becomes not for you anymore, like, then just let me know. And he's like, I want you to hire a replacement. I want you to train your replacement. You know, that is part of what you would be doing anyways if we're hiring someone else. So like, this is where we are. And I was just like, what an interesting concept. Like, that does make sense in terms of like us being super, like back then there was only five of us, but so it would
Sorry,
make sense.
My laptop was dying. That's why you all saw me doing this. It wasn't dying or anything. Maybe I was looking into another planet, and then I was like, no, come back.
It's one of those weeks. Like, I keep saying, like, the world is like, these things are happening above me, and I'm just like, I need to do this right now, and then this, and then all you could just keep orbiting right now, and I'll figure out how to get there, because right now I can't do this. I can't, not looking up, just doing this slowly.
That part.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I go back.
But yeah, when he mentioned that in the job interview, I was like, that's such a great way for me to feel reassured. Like, sometimes this is, you know, not always it, right? Like, in startups, there sometimes can be a point that you're like, I need more, but they can't for these reasons. Or like, I don't know how to train and develop myself. Or I don't know, like, because sometimes depending on who your bosses are, you get in that spot, right? Like, some are great managers and able to help you coach and develop and keep getting you there. Hey, you're jumping on this call. It's about X, Y, and Z. This is what I want you to keep an eye out, right? And others are just like, I have so many meetings, I can't do this. Do you need time to train and develop in something you're interested that you think would benefit the company, right? And it's knowing that and be able to have those conversations and being transparent about it. It's super important. Like, but also like, I sometimes need to be aware. Like, this week I'm like, oh, I'm at my bandwidth. Like, I'm here. Like, I don't know, it just hit me like a brick. I was like, oh crap, I don't know when it happened, but it just did. And now I'm just treading water, and I hate that feeling. So like, it's hard sometimes for you to figure it out at first and be like, I need help. I need to say stop. I need a pause. But being honest and transparent, like I always say, like, if you're being your true authentic self and you're speaking your truth, that there's, no matter what the outcome is meant to be, because like, you're not lying to yourself and you're not lying to others. So I continue to stand by that. So if you're not happy at your company, you could be managed out. They might manage you out, but like, you should figure out a way to take your control and figure out what you need before someone else tells you. That's the worst.
Dude, it is the worst. But to your point, that sometimes it does come at us, you know, blindly, but it's because all the little hints have been dropped and we're not picking up on them because we're so hyper focusing on just surviving, or, you know, maybe we don't see it because we don't want to see it, you know. But I really appreciate what you're saying, which is, here's the steps to starting the process of taking back control of your career. And that is, you know, kind of mapping out what is it that you want for yourself. And even if you're unclear, being okay with talking out loud about that with trusted people in your circle. And, you know, and if you don't have anyone in your circle, I mean, social media is like, I feel like right there for you to go to. There's so many different resources that you can go to and openly talk about, I mean, and feel confident in, okay, I'm gonna put this out here on any of these platforms, and someone's gonna show up and say, hey, this is what worked for me. I mean, look at what we're doing. I mean, this is another resource that someone can go, oh, okay, this is how she broke down the steps to get her to where she is today. And knowing, I think, what is right for you in that moment is not necessarily for a lifetime. And I think that's something to really fight to protect, is that, I mean, I've pivoted 4 times in my career and they all made sense. Like I to transition from doing early childhood development into working in the prevention education sector, in grant writing and honing those skills, to then moving into training and work. You know what I mean? Like everything was about, okay, now it's time to go to this.
Leveling up.
Leveling up, but with intentionality. Like it was like, what makes sense? And sometimes it was challenging because financially I was not prepared to transition, but I knew it was time to transition. And it's like, what do you do when financially you're committed? Because there are folks who may be listening today who have families that, you know, there's a financial obligation to, and, you know, and both of us, you know, are from cultures that, you know, there's like responsibilities to be a part of a larger group, but you know, your family, and not just isolate yourself to, it's just me and only me. It's like, nah, like you need to help out the family type of thing. So what would you say to those who are like, man, yo, Nicole, I would love to take your advice and do this, but shoot, I got family that I have to help out, or, you know, maybe I have a kid, you know, I'm young and I have a kid that I'm taking, you know, whatever the case may be. So what are your thoughts to someone that's in that situation?
That's actually, so I mentor two women, both overseas. I mentor someone that actually recommended I sign up and join. She's like, hey, you've helped me out, sign up for this. And I was like, okay. It's really great. The women I meet with on about a weekly basis are truly fantastic and are gonna change the world. It's amazing. One of them is actually in that moment right now where she needs to maintain her job. She lives with her dad and she helps him with the rent. But she actually got managed out of her position into another position, right? She is also very talented on so many other spectrums in terms of like, she hosts webinars. She has 2 degrees in like growth mindset and psychology. She has a dissertation that's really impactful for corporations. And she's trying to figure out, she's like, well, I can't leave. I am in a weird position with my job that I am doing something else that she's actually really good at, takes less effort for her. So I was like, okay, what else? Like, how do I do this? And I was just like, okay, for me, when I'm ever in this moment of like, there's a lot going on, I have too much, this is not right. I try to really break down, what are the needs? What are the actual needs I need right now? To the like, all right, I have rent, I have this amount per month, I do need to keep a job for this, but the job is what is stressing me out, right? So with her, I was like, make everything frictionless, make the most possible things as frictionless as possible to focus on the things that you do want to spend time on, right? Like for her, she's like, I'm still assigned to these meetings that doesn't make sense I'm on. I was like, all right, well, how can we vocalize you being removed from the meetings without making it seem like it's that big of a deal? Right? Highlight the success of whoever's leading it and say, I think blah, blah, blah actually has it under control. I could spend the time doing this project that I want to be sent to you by this day. Like, right? Like, it's just how you...
an empowerment as opposed to a deficit of, God, this is taking so much away. I love that. I love that. Empowerment versus deficit.
Yeah. And just realizing like, am I creating my own friction somehow? So like, are you saying yes too much that you really don't have the bandwidth?
Don't drag me, Nicole.
My therapist is like, I'm gonna say my therapist is like, are you a people pleaser? I was like, what?
Don't drag me. Oh my God.
It's one
it's
of those
something
things
I'm working on. Yeah, definitely.
It's hard. It is so hard. But I tend to say like, people work in so many different ways. So it's hard to give advice specifically for this because you need to figure out the core items that you want to deal with that are super important, right? Is it looking for a new job and what does that look like? Also, what your minimum salary you're willing to take. Can you take a job that's easier and at the right salary that you're like, you know what, this might be easier and the salary's right, but it's not my dream. Sometimes a job is just monetary for right now. Like we tend to, we all follow your dreams and continue to work towards them, but be realistic in saying this job is just paying the bills until I make it to the next step.
Right.
And that's okay. I mean, like people like CVS managers earn $60,000 to $75,000 a year. Like people look down, I'm like, it's a job that pays, and whether or not it's your passion, it's paying the bills right now to get you to the next step. Why look, right? The whole idea of essential workers, right? Everyone used to look down on essential workers. Now you're not, people aren't leaving their house.
Right.
My mom has to order food like she is immune compromised. She can't leave, right? Like those are all essential workers that should be paid more, first of all, but
yes, let's be clear.
And figuring out how you could like reduce as much as possible, reduce the friction in your life to say, okay, I know I have 3 things. And if you have kids, like generally it's like, kids not like New York is closing down schools again, right? Sitters, like all these things that's so out of control. Like you can't help what's not out of your control. You can help what's in your control. And sometimes that is facing the battles that you know are so difficult. Like my best friend called me earlier. She's like, I just need to get my credit score up. And I don't know why I keep waiting for my ex-boyfriend that broke up with me, who told me we were going to get engaged, to fix my credit score when I could just do it now. I was like, yeah, we could do it, but we just don't like to sometimes. And
Right.
we think someone else is going to do it. But unfortunately, you doing the hard stuff yourself feels so much better. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, that was easier than I thought. We just make it out to be bigger issues sometimes. And that anxiety and the stress, especially now, we can't, like, the internal stress factors are way beyond our control. And eliminating.
You know, one of the things that really stuck out for me is like, the first thing is, it's so important that we do our best to have a diverse group of people around us, because when you have someone in your life that gives permission for you to own responsibility for the things that you can do something about, as opposed to coming from a place of you know, oh, this is just the way it is and I just have to live with how things are. And you know, and I don't want to sound dismissive, but I will say that when I would, and coming from my own personal experiences, and also when I would work with families, I would often say something similar, but I love the thing is reduce the friction. I've never thought about that, so I'm going to take it in our culture.
Take it.
And then the great Nicole once said, but I really appreciate how you're like, look at your life to see what can be reduced, because we have this belief system that as women, I mean, I just said it, I wanted to be Wonder Woman, and I jokingly said it, but there was a part of me that was like, I'm Wonder Woman. And I had to really understand, like, what was I taking on? I literally would be like, I can do it all. Yeah, give it up to me. And we see a lot, you know, if you're a single mother and you're having to do everything, but it's like, in what way can I manage my household to empower, you know, depending on the age of my child, empower my child to have a little bit more responsibility that will reduce it just a little bit for me. Yeah. If there, you know, where do I look? But, you know, we sometimes need permission to do that, because it's like, as a mom, you don't have to be everything for everyone in the family. And I'm learning that I'm not a mom, but I'm a mom in love, because I have many nieces and nephews and godkids. But I've learned how to step up and say, hey, let me help. How can I help support you, mom? Whether you're a single mom or with a partner or a father too. I don't want to dismiss that either. But yeah, I really appreciate you highlighting that, is reducing the friction in your life so that you can have wiggle room to move a little bit in a way that you may not think that you can, because your blinders are up to say, no, you can only do it this way. And then the other thing that I really appreciated you saying, oh shoot, it skipped my mind, dang it. But it was really, really important that I highlighted it. But it was something that you were speaking of about your career, but I can't think of it. But anyway, Yeah, I think you're just dropping gems right now, and it just gives us an opportunity to reevaluate ourselves. So let's switch a little bit into the VC work that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, We the Plug is a organization that works with founders and investors, and so that's part of our attraction to the work that you do, because we're always looking to shore up that connection with those that are investing in companies. So talk a little bit about, your company. Like, are you all investing in early stage startups? What does that look like? Like, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So on top of us being really small, we also we kind of run a little bit differently than what I've noticed in a lot of other just VC firms. So, which is really cool because for me, it allows me to see all the different financial options that are currently out there that I was never aware of, and how people react to it. Like when we were just looking for perks for clients, like reaching out to companies, so like you fit into 2 buckets, and we don't really know how to deal with that. We're just like, okay, like however you want to, I guess. Like, I'm not sure. So the investments side portfolio, it's a pretty diverse portfolio. So that's something to start. It's generally tech focused. And last year, they generally invested in Series B. And then on top of that, we have an incubator, which now we're ramping up, which is we have a 4th partner that they brought in to ramp up an incubator, which is a 3-month program. And they're looking to have about 20 companies come through that a year. And then the other section of it is, so the 2, we have a managing partner and the other partner who he brought on, they're both like Columbia Business School grads that like crossed over and they finally started working together.
Okay.
They will have conversations about like, what company should we start next, which then turns into, it's a partnership. They're part of our foundry, but they will bring in an outside person to be the CEO, and then they could utilize every other company in our foundry, and then the vice of the partners as well, like if necessary. So it's a little different with that in itself. The investment side is really interesting though, because what I've learned is, unfortunately, I wish more VCs would do pre-seed, and as like companies are really starting and coming up, like that I think is really important. But when I've talked to founders, because I try to just meet as many people as possible, if there's someone I could push our way that they might not come across, like, can we do that? And it's hard. Like I met one of the CEOs that does cybersecurity at the Latin X Fest, and he's like, we've been meeting with CEOs, and I haven't taken a salary, and we're cranking out work, but like bootstrapping is just, if someone would just give us a little bit, right? Like we could just not have to worry so much and work 80 hours a week, right? And so I'm learning that every VC firm has their reasons to helping out and how they can, but there's so many and they're so different. And because they're so different, it's hard to pinpoint where VC firms will go, because you could go to anyone, they could be like, well, we don't do it because it's not this, or we do this because it's this. So the VC world itself still has a lot of work for sure. And that is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. That's a part 2 conversation.
It does. But, like I say, like, there wouldn't need to be a VC world if banks did their jobs properly. Like, I think that, like, invest in more people that that they don't think is going to succeed, and don't be disappointed when they succeed and now they won't take their money to your bank, right? Like, things like that. So it's an interesting world. It's a very interesting world.
It really is. I think one of the things that's been really nice for us is being able to have kind of a smorgasbord of resources available to us to share with our founders, and find those niches where it speaks to pre-seed and or women founders, or of color, or Latinx founders, or Black founders, whatever, to really shore up opportunity to access capital. And I think the other part that is really exciting that we're seeing more of is the onboarding of more diverse VCs, whether it's people of color or women, just so that the playing field is easier, because you're right. Everyone has their reasons for how they distribute funds, and at what level. And we cannot just rely on one entity. It needs to be kind of that equity and inclusivity, but spread out, because again, like, not one size fits all. So I appreciate you giving a little bit more insight to the work that is at your VC. So for people who are looking to learn more about the company, tell us where we can find out more information.
Yeah, so you could head up to interplay.vc is our website. We are constantly updating it because we are trying to be a little bit more visible. I think that was something that wasn't the case. Like my bosses have been around for a while, but like many other VC firms, like you could throw a rock and find another one, not realize that they were there consistently.
Right. Yeah.
We're also on LinkedIn. We're AngelList. Probably all emails probably go to me anyways, but they're all there. And I think we're trying to figure out how to be more out there and be a face. And also, like, for me, I'm always like, how can we say we stand for something is always really important. But, starting as being good humans and making sure there's good intentions no matter what is the best way to start and to continue to move forward. But online, interplay.vc, super simple.
And for those who have really been drawn in by Nicole and her thoughts and wisdom on how to navigate through not just the startup space, but just in your career in general, Nicole actually does mentorship and coaching. And so, Nicole, how can they, if they're interested in, getting support from you, resources from you, hiring you to do, whether it's mentorship, coaching, or even come out and speak, and by come out, virtually, because, COVID, Rona, she out here. But how would they connect with you?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn, Nicole Padilla. You could find me New York City, by the way. My name is super long because mom and dad last name, obviously. But you could also email me ND like Destiny, because that's my middle name, ndpvalentin@gmail.com. So super simple.
So is your last name Valentin?
So my full name is
hyphenated?
Nicole. It is hyphenated. Nicole Destiny Padilla Valentin. I know.
Yes, that's right. You better represent your culture.
Yeah.
Always and forever, girl. Always and forever.
Yeah.
Nicole, thank you so much for spending this time with us, for sharing the wisdom. I think we forget oftentimes that professional development is something that goes throughout our career, no matter what age you are. As long as you're in the workspace, you're always going to be needing to shore that up. And sometimes revisit some of that early stage wisdom that you needed in the beginning of your career. And when you're in, your 40s and 50s, and it's like, yo, I'm not happy no more. Dude, switch that up. Even though you may have this mortgage and all that, I know for me, I had to reduce a lot of overhead because I was like, dang, I have all of these assets that are becoming liabilities and I need to do this other work. Where can I, to your point, reduce the friction? Yeah, the great Nicole told me that, reduce friction in my life. She's a wise woman. She's a wise woman. Nicole, I appreciate you. I thank you. Enjoy your Harlem life. I'm living by your I love Harlem. Appreciate you so much for joining us today. You all get all the links. They'll be below. If you want to learn more about what she's doing, and even be a support and mentor if you're a VC and wanting to connect, definitely reach out. Again, shout out to Plug. And for all of you all tuning in, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.